Hey everyone, I'm Stacey Barr. Welcome to our webcast, which is about the strategy alignment problem. Why do I laugh? I don't know. I just think it's a problem that so many organizations have, but it's really hard to kind of figure out how to get around it. Even when organizations have a well-documented strategy, like written down, glossy, you know, glossy PDF, if that's possible, alignment across teams can still be surprisingly fragile. Interpretations can vary, initiatives can multiply, performance reports can tell different stories about progress, and before long, strategy execution begins to drift off course, not because people don't care about it, but because teams aren't actually aligned to it. So, in this webcast with me and our Australasian pump partner, Mark Hocknell, we're going to explore why strategy alignment can break down so easily and how one of Pump's most popular tools, the results map, helps organizations bring everyone back onto the same page. Now, you'll see how clarifying results, defining evidence of success, and connecting initiative to outcomes creates a shared line of sight that makes strategy easier to execute. Now, you may or may not know me or Mark. We're going to do a quick introduction just in case. Like I mentioned, I'm Stacey. Since my career began in the early 1990s, organizational performance measurement has always been the focus of my expertise. And that's how long ago I created, most of you know, the performance measurement methodology called PUMP. It's evolved, however, beyond just performance measurement into a methodology that we have found builds evidence-based thinking into just about any other strategic performance management framework that we know of. One of the unique ways that Pump supports those other frameworks is through this tool called the results map, which aligns and connects all of the goals and measures throughout an organization into a strategy execution roadmap, kind of. And how it does this is what we're going to explore today with my co-host, Mark Hocknell. Mark is our Asia Pacific, Australasia, this part of the world pump partner and brings pump in all its shapes and forms to businesses and organizations across Australia, New Zealand, and other countries in the Asia Pacific. So Mark and I have been working together for a very long time. We hit our 20-year anniversary this year, Mark.
It doesn't feel that long, which is good. So thanks, Stacey. Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here with you. I'm a massive fan of results mapping technique that Stacey just mentioned. It was after 16 years as a manager and leader that I first discovered Pump and this technique that stars in the webcast today. Um, if I had been able to use results mapping back then, which is actually before it was created, if I was able to use it back then, I would have just saved myself many, many hours of just fraught conversations and rework because we all struggle to find alignment between our work and what we call strategy. And what seems to be obvious to me may not be obvious to others. So today, Stacey and I will guide you through some interactive explorations about why we have a strategy alignment problem and how we can fix it. So here's a quick orientation of what we'll cover in this webcast. Why strategy execution often drifts even when the strategy is well documented and communicated. We'll look at how alignment becomes stronger when it's built around results rather than activities, and how evidence of success creates a shared understanding across teams, and how the awesome results map builds a line of sight for every team to take the right actions to execute strategy, and why this approach then creates a cultural breakthrough that so many leaders are looking for. So if strategy alignment in your organization feels harder than it should be, this webcast will show you a practical way to build clarity, focus, and shared direction back into strategy execution. Before we dive in, though, here's a quick look at how we and Pump can support your organization beyond this webcast.
Indeed. So these free webcasts that we do pretty much every quarter, they're designed to give you a taste of the many ways that we can support your organization with strategic performance management, strategy execution, measurement, all the good stuff. Our flagship programs, of course, are the Pump Blueprint, which is for measuring performance meaningfully to support strategy execution. And we have a bunch of other programs, but another second flagship program, I guess you could call it, is evidence-based leadership, which is for leaders. It's like Pump for leaders, so that they can not only create a measurable strategy for everyone to align to, but also become really aware of behaviors that support creating a culture that values learning and improvement, particularly through measurement. Bunch of other programs we have support the implementation and adoption of Pump throughout the organization. Now, the Pump team stretches across the world. Africa, Europe, North America, and our entire team have seen and absolutely believe in the difference that Pump makes in your organization's ability to perform well. So we're hoping that webcasts like these really help you, if you haven't already, to decide on Pump. And if you do, you can see all the programs that we have at Pump's home website, which is pump.academy/programs. That'll tell you all about what we offer. But if you've got any questions, by the way, that Deb's just put that link in the chat for you if you want to grab it. Or if you just want to have a chat about your organization and how we might be able to help you with your specific unique challenges in this space, just shoot us an email, team@pump.academy. And we can point you in the right direction or arrange with your leader a practical discovery discussion where you can really explore what Pump can do. So anyway, if you stay with us until the end of this webcast, we're going to share a few more details about our next public Pump Blueprint training workshop, which is specifically timed for the Australian and Asia Pacific region. With that, let's start exploring the strategy alignment problem. And we'll do that with a really quick poll. We just want to explore with you, how confident are you that everyone interprets your strategic direction in the same way? So let me grab that poll. Here it comes. So you should be able to see that now on your screen. How confident are you that everyone interprets the strategic direction in the same way? Patterns are emerging. I'll give you a little bit more time. This is great. This is high participation. We're at 86% of you have already had a go. I'll give you a couple more seconds for anyone who hasn't quite put their vote in, or not vote, but your answer in. 88%. Okay, there we go. I'll wrap this up and share the results with you all. So there you go. No one's very confident, Mark.
No one at all. And I guess that's why we're all here, is to talk about how do we use all this standard strategic language, but we don't actually interpret what it's all about, what the direction is.
And just not confident, not sure that
Yeah.
that every team is really on the same page. And quite frankly, given the low results of strategy execution success that you keep seeing it in the research, it's natural to have a low confidence that everyone's interpreted the strategy in the intended way. Now, this is not always a problem with how the strategy is kind of shared or communicated, but it can be a problem with how the strategy is articulated, I guess.
Hmm.
So have I got that
So,
poll out of the way successfully, Mark? So
um,
there we go. I think I have.
okay. Yeah, so this we've been talking about the strategy execution and how we just said that whilst we had, I think it was about 25% of people said they were somewhat confident. No one of us really are confident that strategy execution is being communicated. Everyone's got the same idea of it. And that drifts even when the strategy seems to be at least well documented and communicated. The strategic plan is written, it's formatted in a beautiful glossy PDF with lots of nice images in there. It's shared through leadership announcements, town hall meetings, emails, team meetings, gets cascaded down, and so on, as you all know. However, documentation is not the same as shared understanding, which I think is what we just discovered in that poll. Everyone's got the documented strategy, but the same strategy document is still interpreted individually by each person. And on top of that, each team's interpretation is filtered then through their own priorities, their own day-to-day pressures, and their own language. And strategic drift then is triggered by disengagement, if you like. It's triggered by a divergence of understanding that is usually never visible until we're looking back and say, how did we do all this? And it's not really on track or contributing to strategy through that divergence of understanding. And there's an assumption that the communication, the words written and the many words added to that to try and interpret it, it's that assumption that the communication creates the alignment is itself the trap. So, for example, here is a typical strategy document layout. So we'll use a fictional organization called Cacao, which stands for Chocolate and Cocoa or Cacao Apothecary Operations. Bit of a mouthful, so cacao is better. They research, develop, and manufacture and sell medicinal chocolate products.
Yummy.
So if you're like me, at the end of this webcast, you may have a bit of a craving for chocolate, but that's okay. It is medicinal in moderation. So cacao's vision, though, is to spread the healing and health-enhancing qualities of sustainable chocolate throughout the world. Their vision is a world where chocolate reaches its full potential as a natural medicine and mood enhancer. So we've got the vision, we've got the mission. So now let's look at their strategic goals. First one, we'll look at three of them. Establish a suite of evidence-based medicinal chocolate products with demonstrable impact. Foster a collaborative, diversified, and engaged workforce. And change community attitudes to chocolate. So let's now play with how a team, let's put ourselves in that situation, might align itself to this strategy for cacao.
Exactly. And I'm going to bring up a whiteboard for us to play with this. The mission vision goals will be replicated over on that whiteboard. So don't try to remember it all. Oh, yeah. It takes me a little time to find the whiteboard. If you've used Zoom, you know how many oh, good grief, it's asking me to sign in. I already am signed in Zoom.
It just reminds me all the time of how all of these systems have automatic upgrades now, whereas I remember a while ago, not that long ago, for only a few years, you sort of have to accept the upgrades and updates, but now they just come through, and next time you go to use something, it's new and different. Things are in a different place.
That's it. Well, hopefully you can all see the whiteboard now.
Yeah.
And I want you to there are 5 activity panels, right? I want you to find activity 1 right at the top. It's called strategy scatter. Then I'll give you a bit of an instruction for how to do this. So there you go. You've got the strategic goals written there on the left for you as a reminder. Um, Imagine that you are the head of advocacy and sales. It's a department in Cacao, and the advocacy and sales department are the voice of chocolate, if you like, to make the community more aware and appreciative and build more trust in chocolate as a superfood and natural medicine. And they're doing that to drive sales. So, your task as the head of advocacy and sales is to use these sticky notes here up the top there. You can just grab them off the sticky note pad or stack. Answer this question. What would teams in your department plan to do to execute Cacao's strategy? So you want to align your teams to those 3 strategic goals. What are your teams going to do to execute Cacao's strategy? Advocacy and sales is the team that you're in. There are no right or wrong answers, okay? Imagine we're just in a sandbox, we're playing. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a go at that. By the way, the question that I'm asking you is up there in the top left of the box in case you've didn't memorize it. Got some interesting ones coming up already, Mark. Any one jump out at you that you want to?
Well, they all look great. And what I'm seeing is pretty much all of them are actions.
Things like research for product
Research.
development and engage with communities or customers early.
Yes.
Run a marketing campaign to promote the medical benefits. Develop
Hold,
chocolate products.
hold the team meeting, right? And a team building session so we can get more engaged. But the actions are really coming in thick and fast.
Yeah.
Conduct research. Yeah.
And we wouldn't expect anything else, would we? Because this is typically what we would see teams doing in response to that question. What are you going to do to execute on the strategy? So, like Mark said, every one of those is reasonable. But what I hope you can see is just that the divergence in activity that has kind of emerged there. Is there anything else any of you have noticed from the kind of ideas that have come up in post-it notes in the chat? Feel welcome just to share any other reflections you have on this little activity. Mark and I have noticed how much activity type responses are there. Do you notice anything else? So again, over in the chat, share your reflection. I haven't seen a reflection come through the chat yet. Mark, are you seeing it?
No.
I think we're still seeing post-it notes getting filled in. Oh, there we go.
Sasha's got one. Yep. I noticed people are suggesting staff outside the role or stuff outside the role of the head of advocacy and sales.
Could well be, yeah. Hi, Sasha, by the way.
Yeah. And the activity is saying, what are we asked to do?
Yeah, that's right. And Dan, that's typically the bias that's taken in trying to align teams to strategies to get them to focus on what they will do. Cherie says a long list of actions as opposed to identifying strategic levers. I love that phrase that we'll focus on and those that we won't focus on. Another important part of that of alignment.
Yeah. Cameron saying there's a high level of interpretation required to even start to plan activity.
Yep,
So,
yep.
so it's the interpretation of the strategy, right? It's at high level. What is the strategy, which is what we're leading to, of course.
And Paul's comment there, I don't understand the from to of in the goals.
Yeah.
There we go.
And
Okay, we might. Sorry, Mark.
I was just saying Debbie's got that one there around how the team will work in terms of actually strategic goals.
Yeah, cool. Good. Great observations, everybody. Cool. So we'll leave that there. I will close the whiteboard. Trying to get back to, oh, good grief. I swear to you, I did this twice last week and Zoom is different again. I've kind of lost my, oh, here we go. Found it again. Back to the, I'm going, taking us back to the PowerPoint. Now, I'll get smoother and faster at this, I promise, as we progress. Okay. So The issue here is that alignment to strategy isn't really possible when teams don't really understand what they're contributing to. Um, and the misunderstanding can also start with how strategy is written. A strategy that's written as actions, like these are, or written with vague words, many of you already know the idea of weasel words. This is what breeds this divergence. So our first step in solving the strategy alignment problem is to make sure that the strategy is easy to interpret correctly and consistently.
So strategic alignment is about how every team contributes best towards achieving the strategic goals. So alignment then becomes stronger when this contribution is easier to discover. And that happens when strategy is built around results rather than activities. This is because activity-focused alignment, such as we're all doing things related to the strategy, like that list of things that we came up with just before, it feels like alignment, but it really isn't. Results give teams something concrete to agree or disagree about, and activities don't, or they do it much less so. So when teams define what they're trying to achieve rather than what they're doing, the gaps and overlaps become much more visible. And this is a mindset shift. And it's not just about the technique. It requires slowing down before executing. So here is how Cacao actually wrote their strategy, how it could be written to clearly describe the results. So these are the original Cacao goals that we just looked at before and played with the post-it notes. And here's how they might look. So writing them in a different way. So first one, establish a suite of evidence-based medicinal products with demonstrable impact is an action that implies a result, such as our medicinal chocolate products do exactly what the labels promise. The other one, the foster a collaborative and diversified and engaged workforce, implies a few results, but one of them for collaborative could be teams reach their goals without manager intervention. Change community attitudes to chocolate is a very general action that might imply a result, such as the market for medicinal chocolate products, or MCPs, really readily pays what they are really worth. So when we notice when we're rewriting the strategic goals as a clear result, makes them much more anchored in the real world where people are working. And they become easier for people to understand and easier for teams to align to.
Absolutely. Imagine you're still the head of advocacy and sales at Cacao. And remember, this department is about community awareness, marketing, and sales for Cacao. There is really only one of these strategic results that you see now, the new ones that Mark just shared. There's really only one of those that advocacy and sales contributes directly to. So in the chat, type in the number of the one you think that it is. So there's 1, 2, and 3 there. In the chat, type in the number of the strategic goal, the result-oriented one that advocacy and sales directly contribute to. And Mark, I see almost entirely everyone choosing number 3.
Yeah. And it does depend on two.
2 is one of those ones that every part of the organization will be affected by.
Yeah.
So 3 is the one that advocacy and sales directly contribute to. Other teams in Cacao would contribute directly to 1 and 2. So number 3 is the one we're going to focus on now. The market for MCPs, medicinal chocolate products, readily pays what they are really worth. Again, to do this, we'll go back to the whiteboard. And we're going to move down to the second activity frame. This is called results reframe. It's got the green sticky note in case that helps you find it. And strategic goal number 3, the result-oriented version of it, is written there for you. The market for MCPs readily pays what they are really worth. Your task is, again, to use those green sticky notes to answer the question, what results would your team need to focus on to contribute to increasing how much of the market will readily pay for medicinal chocolate products? So what results would your teams in advocacy and sales possibly need to focus on to increase the likelihood that the market will readily pay for medicinal chocolate products? So again, no wrong or right answers. You're just playing around with the upstream results, if you like, that advocacy and sales teams might focus on to contribute to achieving just that one strategic goal. Again, a couple minutes for you to play around. And you're thinking about results, team level results, that if they're achieved, then that strategic level result will be more likely to be achieved. So we've got a few very different ones coming out this time, Mark. I could see consumer knowledge of MCP effects and availability. Yep.
Yeah. And pricing fits with the market, what people can pay, what they're prepared to pay.
Uh-huh. Um, uh, Still a couple of actions coming through, I think. Um, Creating a sales campaign, benchmarking. Um, So again, this is the trick, and this is why this matters so much, and awareness of this matters so much. It's actually quite challenging sometimes to write down results that a team is producing rather than the actions that they are doing. It takes a few iterations, in fact, Mark, wouldn't you say?
It does, and it's like you said, it's a different way of thinking that really brings about results thinking rather than action thinking. There's what comes to my mind is this is I don't know for how many years, but managers always say that to sit there, what are you going to do? And it's always focused on you've got to do something. And it's almost as if activity is the answer to everything. But activity just burns time and effort
It does, it does.
and
We want
cost.
results. And there's another good one there, that the market moves from not paying what they are worth to paying what they are worth. So a shift in market. That is a result. We want to see that shift for sure.
Yeah.
Does another result pop out for you anywhere, Mark? I'm not sure if I haven't had a chance to read them all yet.
Yeah. We had evidence of how and why people move to the products. So once you've got that evidence, it tells you the consumer sentiment or the customer sentiment, if you like, about why they would move to it.
And another one there about the market actually, their value perception for medicinal chocolate products increases. So that's another result as well. So hopefully that's kind of coming through, that idea that we're trying to write the results, the changes, the differences, the outcomes, the impacts. There's all sorts of words we can use to describe that. We call them results in Pump. That the actions that the team do should create. So it's the why of the activity that they do. So any other reflections from any of you in the chat about that activity, about observing how a team can align itself to a strategic result by thinking about its own results? Any other observations there? Just type them into the chat. Again, I'll give you a few moments to do that.
I guess one thing I'm seeing, Stacey, is there's less notes. Whereas when we were thinking about the actions, we were able to pretty much completely fill up the
Fill
whole
them.
whiteboard with actions. Whereas when we're thinking more about results, it tends to narrow us down a little bit in terms of what we're seeing.
Yeah, tighter thinking. What really are the results that the team needs to focus on if that specific strategic result is going to be achieved? Yeah. Um, Dan's got a reflection. Lots of the results are useful, but there are no links between them or to the goals. We don't know how they make a difference. That is a pretty astute observation, Mark.
I think we're going to address that pretty soon.
We are going to address that pretty soon. Dan, stay tuned.
Nalini says, how do we stop people jumping to initiative generation when we want them to focus on results? Even in this exercise, a lot of us wrote down the ideas for the actions. And again, Nalini, that's really about focusing that mindset shift. We often do go straight to the action because we're going to focus on what we're going to do.
Yeah. And Nalini, to answer that, because there's kind of a question embedded in there, is iteratively, because it's not going to happen first time. You can't say magic words and ask a magic question that'll get exactly the right results. You've got to go through it iteratively. So what we would do in this case, because as you observed, there are still actions there. Some of the actions we would ask a question like, well, okay, if we want to let's see, let me find an action in there. Uh, uh, Oh, I can't read.
Or even just a general response of once we see an action, we'd say, okay, if we did the action and we did it really well, what would be the impact or the result of that action?
Thanks, Mark. Perfect. Yeah. So that's the follow-up question, the next iteration. And you can ask that question in a few ways until you really land on the result, until the team really sees that difference between result and action. So yeah.
And what that does, it brings out when someone's put an action in there, in their mind, they're seeing that there is some outcome from it, but they haven't yet articulated what that is because sometimes when you write the action, it's to you, it seems pretty obvious.
Yeah. Good. Okay. We've got a full webcast, like I said. Let Mark, you keep us moving on while I get out of this whiteboard again.
So alignment to strategy then is built from this cause and effect contribution. So as we were looking at these results here, we were looking at results on the post-it notes that could contribute then to those results, those reframed strategic goals that we had on that slide there. And everyone can see more tangibly then how their team helps achieve the strategy by seeing where and how they best contribute impact, which is looking at the result statements more so than the original strategic goals. And when this alignment, or when this alignment of impact is tangible, measurement changes then. Measurement becomes a tool for thinking and not just reporting. So strategic alignment is about how every team contributes best towards achieving the strategic goals. And that alignment becomes stronger when this contribution is easier to discover. And that happens when strategy is built around results rather than activities. And this is because hitting the initiative or the project milestones is not evidence of success. We all know that doing is not the same as achieving. And defining evidence helps teams check their interpretation of success and to ensure it is explicit and testable. And that evidence is what we get from our key performance measures. Shared evidence of success makes performance conversations productive rather than political. And it supports decisions that really drive strategic execution. And this is where performance measures evolve from reporting tools into those thinking tools. So now we're going to explore how Cacao's advocacy and sales team added KPIs to their results. So what did Cacao's advocacy and sales department actually choose as their results as they contribute to strategy? We played with some of the post-it notes, but here's how they map into the strategic result of the market for MCPs readily pays what they are worth. So that's a strategic result for Cacao. So the whole advocacy and sales department contribute to this goal through two departmental level results. Demand for MCPs grows steadily, and our followers are promoters of our message. Then teams within the advocacy and sales department contribute to the department's results via their own team level results. And they would be something like, the world is fascinated by the story of chocolate's potency.
I am.
Practitioners understand the value of MCPs. and the world's chocolate appreciators become our followers. So this is probably going to look different to what we had on our post-it notes, but doesn't matter. It's what they all came up with in our activities, but we're not the real cacao advocacy and sales team. So we can continue with this version now.
And that's the version you're going to see when we go back to the whiteboard. And of course, we're going to be moving down to the third activity frame. This one's got the blue post-it notes. It's got a picture of that little piece of the results map Mark just showed you for cacao. So hang out down there with me. Activity number 3, measure match is what it's called. So again, that diagram there is the results contribution chain for cacao's advocacy and sales department, just for that department. And over on the left there, you'll see a table, which is a collection of measures that match these results, but they've been detached. So your task is to use the sticky notes to type in the number. Each measure's got a number next to it. Type in the number of the measure and place that sticky note next to the result that you feel that measure is the best evidence of. So sticky note, just if you're interested in the first measure, average content view time, just put a number 1, because that's that measure's number, into a sticky note, and then drag your sticky note next to the result on that map that you feel the measure is the best evidence of. Couple of minutes for you to get stuck into that. Lovely. Seeing a clustering of measure number 5 around the result, the world's chocolate appreciators become our followers.
Yeah.
And measure number 5 is total followers. So it sounds pretty like a pretty strong match. Lots of them cluster, lots of measure number 6, total sales revenue, clustering around the strategic result, the green one, the market for
Yeah.
MCPs readily pays what they're worth. So overall, market, what are you seeing here?
I'm seeing a nice alignment of measures connected to the results.
Yeah, I'm
That's what I'm
seeing it
seeing.
too. And a fairly
And
high amount of agreement.
yeah. And also we all recognize, hopefully we're all recognizing that we're not brainstorming any KPIs here. What we've done is we've designed and selected a bunch of measures for these results and that they fit to specific results. And I think we're seeing the fit between the measures and the results, which is nice.
Yeah. And like honestly, this is not how you do measurement. You start with the result and you deliberately design it using a technique like Pump's measure design technique. But that's already been happening, right? Like cacao's already done that. And I've just detached the measures just for this exercise to see how easily you can figure out which measure really suits the result. So that'll do for now. Well done, everybody. Thank you for contributing to that. I will take us back to the.
Well, just before we do, just
Oh,
as
yeah.
we look at that, I think typically what we do in our organizations, particularly with the strategic documentation we use, we come up with the strategy and then we come up with a list of measures,
Yeah.
pretty much like we're seeing on the left-hand side of that whiteboard. And what we've just demonstrated here, which is maybe only just occurred to me, Stacey, but we've taken a list of measures, what we see in our organizations typically, we've actually now aligned them to those results.
Yeah.
So the measures, even though they look like a good list of measures, they do function at different levels in the organization. And getting that structure is what will be really helpful for us as we start to use the measures of evidence of the impact and the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. When you say they function at different levels, it means they inform different level of decision making. Strategic decision making are informed, decisions are informed by a certain set of measures. They're not the same measures that will inform operational level decisions.
Yep. Like we've got there, the team results, department results, and the strategic results.
Yeah, exactly. Right there. So let me show you how the measures actually match with these results. So this is, and mostly this matches what you all did in the activity. So I only gave you one measure per result, but sometimes a single result actually needs more than one. 2 or 3 measures is not uncommon, but we're just keeping it simple here, right, for the purpose of that. So now that these are just measure names, by the way, each measure will have a description of how it's actually calculated. I haven't provided you with that, again, just to keep it simple. But hopefully most of those measure names is giving you a good clue about what's being quantified. In the chat, share what you believe measures add to the story of advocacy and sales contribution to Cacao's green strategic goal there. What are the measures adding to this story? First, we just had the results map. Now we've got measures attached to it. In the chat, what do they add?
So Sasha's put in here that it's evidence as to whether the goals are being achieved.
And some motivation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dan, yet again, evidence. The motivation's an interesting one, I think, Mark, that Sasha said, because the measures make it even more tactile, bring it down to what we would actually look at and see shifting and changing. And that can be quite motivating too, to know what exactly we're trying to have an effect on.
And I think I use a slightly different word. It sort of narrows your focus on, let's not try and, the world's fascinated by our story. It's how do you narrow that down so that it's something that I can make an impact on?
Yeah.
And the measures are a good focus point for that.
Nalini saying measures also make it more obvious what the best initiatives should be. That's pretty good observation. I agree
Yeah.
100% with that.
And Cameron saying that clarification too, as it adds detail and makes it easier to understand the result with the measure attached to it. I added to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can tell by the way some of these results are written if they've taken a little bit of poetic license to it, which is okay, but it's still, it's trying to bring a bit of a visceral feeling to some of the results. You don't have to be quite like that. It can be much more specific with how you write results, but the measures can act as that extra layer of clarification.
And I like Christine's point here too about consistency of what every person is looking at. It makes it clear to all what's being tracked.
Yeah, that's it. Dan says measures narrow people's focus, especially if tied to incentives. They could skew people's actions from other useful things. They better be the right things to measure. That's exactly our point. Hey, Mark, like
That's
you
it.
don't just pull them out of thin air. You don't pull them out of past historical reports. You don't brainstorm them. What do you do instead?
Use a process like measure design so you can design and select the right measures for each result.
Yeah, and it's very deliberate. It's not hard. It's just
Yeah.
something that we aren't born knowing how to do. But once you see it, and like most people say, once they've been through measure design, is it looks obvious in hindsight.
It's like so many things that we do. Once we learn a technique or a process about how we do it, it becomes much easier.
That's it. Moving on.
So performance measures then, or some people call them KPIs, that evidence results, they create touchstones, like we just said, and they align each part of the organization more tangibly to the strategic direction. So in this illustration we're seeing here, the team's activities are aligned to the strategic result, which is a green result on that map. The evidence helps us confirm the story of contribution to strategy and also supports performance conversations that drive strategy execution. And what we're seeing here is the start of a pump results map. And this results map has shown us how to solve the strategy alignment problem for just one department. Imagine how powerful it can be when the whole organization is aligned like this. So a results map is a unique way that allows us and leaders to build a line of sight for every team to take the right actions to execute strategy. A results map connects high-level strategic outcomes with team-level results in a cause and effect chain. It creates a line of sight, means every team can trace their work back to the strategy and forward to impact. Line of sight also measures that leaders can trace the drivers of strategic goals across the organization. They sometimes call those strategic drivers. Sometimes people refer to them as the levers that can lift performance at a particular strategic level. And without that chain, teams act within good faith, but in isolation. And that isolation can blind them to the true direction of the strategy. The results map, though, makes misalignment visible early on when it's still cheap, if you like, to address before resources are used and steer us in the wrong direction. So here is what Cacao's full results map looks like. So this is the full results map for all 6 departments within Cacao. And we've been exploring this section here, which is about the advocacy and sales team. And let's now take a closer look.
So let me take us back to whiteboard again. Here it comes. We're going down to the 4th frame, activity number 4, strategy story. And there's the full results map that Mark just showed you. Your task here is to look over the results map. What I want you to notice is the arrows that are, or the links or the relationships that are between the results. You can see generally that there's an arrow that kind of shows cause-effect relationship that flows from the outside of the diagram, the orange bubbles, through the blue, through the green to the pink. So there's like a cause-effect line of sight chain there. But that is not the only kind of alignment that matters in organizations. So your task is to look over this results map. You may need to zoom in a little bit and look for links that flow across departmental boundaries in the blue or orange layers. That's where you'll find them. So where are there links that are flowing, I guess, kind of sideways in this results map rather than from the outside toward the inside? And what I'd like you to do is use the sticky notes to type in what you think these additional links mean and what they could be useful for. So you might want to put a sticky note right nearby the link that you are making a comment about. So look for those links that are flowing sideways. They'll look a little bit different maybe to the cause effect arrows that flow from the outside in. But yeah, what do you think they mean and why do you think they're there? This one might take a little bit of thought, so just give you a bit of extra time to ponder. So again, find a link that flows sideways and use a post-it note to describe what you think it means and why it's important. Seeing a couple come through now, Mark.
Mm.
We've got one over on the far left there, probably commenting on that result. That's the 2 results, orange results that are linked by that line with the dots on either end. These 2
Yeah.
results work together.
Yeah.
Sounds fair?
Yep. That's just a good idea to link them together in that way.
Any others stand out for you, Mark?
Yeah, we've got the linking there between the risk and opportunity. So the ones that are or about 11 o'clock on the map. Yeah, as if it was a clock face.
Yep.
Linking those two together because there's a relationship between those two things or those two results.
Just going to make some of these post-it notes a little bit. Oh, the text isn't increasing. Trying to be able to read it. Ingredients and procurement is linked to quality. They are dependent on each other. Over here down at, that would be 7 o'clock, I think, bottom left.
Yeah, yeah.
There is dependency. So yeah, this is the point here that you all seem to be picking up on, is that strategic alignment isn't just about teams or departments working in parallel and independently to contribute directly to the strategic goals. In other words, it's not just about the line of sight that flows from the outside of the map to the inside of the map. It's also about identifying where it's important to collaborate across teams, within teams, and where it's important to look out for unintentional competition or inadvertent sabotage. So the results map is a very different way, I guess, to write and communicate and build alignment with strategy. And it's a really powerful way to solve this strategy alignment problem for these reasons. And it's also a powerful way to start a cultural breakthrough. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts there on the map. Let's head back to the PowerPoint.
There's a couple of things in this, Stacey, and that is we've seen some of those connections between those results, and they were tracking different types of connections between those results. As you said, some of them are in conflict, some of them go together hand in hand, and some of them have a cause and effect relationship. So understanding all that gives us a clearer um, understanding of what actually is going on in our organization and what we're trying to achieve, and therefore what we monitor. So,
That's exactly right.
yeah,
And that is because the results map is a mindset shift. So, like you're saying, Mark, rather than seeing an organization as a collection of building blocks, it will show the organization as an organism, like of interconnected parts that all work together for a shared purpose. And that's because
and there's a
organizations are dynamic systems, not inanimate structures.
that's right. And that sort of picks up on Dan's question or point he makes before. He says, do terms like drive, lever, change, or chain overstate the strength of the linkages between intermediate and final results? And then he says it often depends on other people that are outside our control or whatever. But when we have the performance results and we have the measures, it's the measures that tell us how much strength and there is between those linkages. And because the measures have that level of causality as they go through. So combined with the performance measures, it reveals, or the results map reveals for us with those measures and how they're changing over time, what's actually going on within the organization,
And just
where
one
this
step, oh, sorry, Mark,
yeah, where those strong linkages and where those weaker linkages are.
and to learn where they're strong and where they're weak,
Yeah,
you need the results map because it's a set of hypotheses about what does impact on what, and then the measures will help you test those hypotheses. And maybe
yeah,
you're wrong. Maybe the results map you did the first time round isn't, perfect, and so you might want to tweak things to find where there is more strength in that causality or strength in that influence that you can have, each team can have on contributing.
yeah,
Regardless, when everybody is involved in building their part of the results map, that mindset shift helps or becomes, in a way, a culture shift. So leaders, it you do see it a fair bit. Leaders can reach for culture as the explanation for alignment problems, but it's actually the other way around. Culture is a symptom, not a cause. When people share a line of sight to results, the collaboration becomes structurally easier. You don't have to mandate it. The results map shows you where the collaboration is important. And that shift from activity monitoring that we talked about earlier to a results focus, that changes how people talk about performance. They're talking about impact and difference and change, not just what they want to measure. And this is the aha moment that leaders often describe after building their results map. So we're going to go back to the whiteboard just one more time. I'm looking at the time. I think we're going to run over. So thankfully we are recording it. If any of you are just about ready to say, oh, I've got to run off to a meeting, that's fine. You'll still catch it in the replay. Whiteboard one more time. I'm going to ask you to reflect on this culture question. So we're scrolling down to the last activity frame now. Activity 5, culture catalyst. It's got the orange sticky notes, if that helps you find it. Right there, you'll also see Cacau's full results map again. Your task is to, again, grab a sticky note and answer the question. This time reflecting on your own organization. What would be different in your organization if your teams had a results map like that could show them that line of sight to the strategic direction and the obvious ways they need to be collaborating across organizational boundaries? What would be different if your organization had a results map? A couple of minutes to think about that. This isn't taking very long, Mark.
It's they're beautiful words. I don't know why I use the word beautiful, but ownership over outcomes. I mean, it's so that is what every leader is looking for, right?
Yeah.
And the statement you used before, Stacey, that culture is a symptom, it's not a cause. You know, many managers and leaders will blame the culture that it's not right or it's not on point. But when the things that we're talking about here is that it's often because there is gaps in the way strategy is communicated or what's being rewarded and all those types of things that create the culture. But it doesn't, it's what causes it. Whereas things like results maps can do exactly what we're saying here, that there's clarity that defines the actions, there's ownership over the outcomes. There's less silos because people can see that they need to work together. There's a there's a collaboration to achieve results is required. It's not just in my team, it's across teams. And we
And
see the
more
whole system.
clarity to
Yeah.
define actions. You'd actually achieve results, improved accountability, a good, healthy kind of accountability. Um, just some, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of beautiful words, Mark. A change in perception about performance reporting, so it really becomes useful. Um, Confidence that
Just
there's alignment in thinking on what our strategy is, clear understanding at senior levels about what evidence of progress is, ownership over performance reporting at all levels. Good capture there. Anything else, Mark?
oh, just yeah, less silos is right there in the big post-it note. And you go, I don't think there's any organization anywhere that is not trying to, there's always trying to achieve less silos
Mm.
and more transparency and more collaboration across teams to achieve results. It's
That's everybody, thank you so much. That's probably the richest set of benefits that I think I've ever seen. When I've asked people that question, how would this change your organization? I'm always thinking there's a whole lot of content that could come out of that. It's awesome. Thank you. Okay. So the point here is that really strategy drifts because shared clarity is assumed. It's not actually deliberately built. And a results focus and the results map, that is what is the structural fix. That is what builds that clarity. And evidence of success, as we've picked up before, which, the right KPIs, the right measures, that's what makes it real, brings it into tangible life for people. So there we are. That is what we wanted to share with you today. I know we're running over time. Please hang around a bit longer if you want to play with the Q&A, or if you want to go beyond understanding this and actually build this for your organization, because learning exactly how to build a results map and how to measure it and how to bring those measures to life and use them to really transform the way you talk and think and act on performance. That is what Learning Pump is going to give you. And Mark will give you all an overview of our next pump program. So over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Stacey. So just before we share some pump options for you, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat and we can answer them very shortly. So as we said before, pump is our flagship methodology to help organizations move from their strategic performance management approaches through meaningful measurement. Pump is not just another thing to do, it's how we do the things that we already do and how we can do them better. And it's the detail that's missing from most of our existing strategy, performance, and management approaches. So when we integrate pump into what we're doing already, not only is it easier to create meaningful performance measures, but it strengthens every other strategic performance management approach that we're already using. So developing performance measures with pump is easier and more meaningful than any way that I've ever tried before, and I guess that you have ever tried before as well. And that's because of the uniquely practical way that Stacey has created pump in this step-by-step set of tools and techniques that guide the right conversations with people and teams about measuring what matters. And depending on your role and your situation, we have a range of ways that you can learn and implement pump. We have the Pump Blueprint training workshop that's coming up in June from the 10th to the 17th, 5 half days online. There's an early bird that's expired, but we want to give you a bonus discount for attending this webcast, and that's $500 off per person, and it combines with our group discount rate. But it is strictly available only until registration closes for that workshop in June, which is on the 1st of June. And we'll email you a coupon code right after this webcast. All
And
the
Deb's also put it in the chat, Mark, just in case anyone wants to copy it now.
Nice. So all the details where you can also register for that workshop over at pump.academy Blueprint Public. And if you think a private workshop is best for you and your colleagues, and that's one that's just run for you and your organization, you can learn more about this option at pump.academy Pump Blueprint Private. And if you're a leader or you know a leader, we also have a program that could be good for the leadership team, and that we can book a discussion call with them to get a taste of that. And you can email us about that at team@pump.academy.
And just on that, we've also, some of you may have already received it. I haven't sent it out to everyone yet, just to our alumni, Pump alumni. But we have a little kit that can help you explain to your leader why a discovery discussion would be a profound and useful experience for them. There's no obligation. It's complimentary, and no, it's not a salesy, pressury thing. It's actually to give them a taste, like what you've had today, about how pump can help them. So we will put a link to that little kit to help you share the discovery discussion with your leader in a follow-up email to this webcast, so you will get it. And like we said earlier, we're going to hang around now and make sure we get all of your questions answered. So again, if you've got to rush off and haven't put your question in the chat yet, go ahead and do that. We'll systematically go through them and let you know when the replay is ready so that you can catch up on the Q&A. So, Mark.
Cameron's got a question there. Considering that the development of the results map would require a high level of engagement from teams at all levels, what are the intermediate steps recommended if we can't achieve that level of engagement yet? So my view is, and my response on that is, you start developing the results map based on what you know and what you've heard already, and develop a draft. I always like to get the draft together and explain it to people, and then take it to them, get talking about it. So even with those, if those pink and green results in the center of the map come from the leadership team, for example, or they're the ones that own it, take a stab at them.
Yeah.
And what I find that happens is that when you put them in front of those leaders, they'll say either, yeah, that's what I meant, or no, it's wrong, it's this.
Yeah.
And what you do is you've got the result language straight away, and they will repeat back to you, in my experience, with result language rather than what normally goes into the strategic documents.
Yeah, which is a masked, obtuse or diluted or very vague version of what they really mean. What they really mean still in here sometimes, often still in here. Another tip I've got, Mark, in addition to yours or as an alternative to yours, is really you can start anywhere with the results map. Any team that's ready, any team that's saying, we want clarity, we want clear goals and good measures to help us do a better job. Start there, and we've seen that happen. There's a government agency in New Zealand that did this approach years ago. Started with one team, shared the story of what they did with other teams, and other teams started saying, "Do me next," come and do this with us next, and it started to grow organically, and that we see that a lot actually. But yeah, that's another option as well. Mark, which question do you want to go to next?
This one there from Dan. The results map from today shows the whole organization at one level of detail. Do you map a greater levels of detail or show views that show only what is relevant to a particular audience? I personally, once we've got the results map developed, just use the whole thing.
That's all that's needed.
And they don't often, the one we just saw there with cacao, I think is typical of a organization. Even people that have said we've got a really large organization here, there's a couple of thousand people and all this stuff. When it comes to focusing on their results, they still all fit onto a results map.
And that is intentional and deliberate in how the results map is supposed to work. And Dan, it probably everyone should know we are very much inspired by the advice of Michael Porter, who's a very well known expert in this whole field of strategy, who says that the something like the key to strategy is omission. We should be ruthlessly prioritizing. That's what strategy is. It's a ruthless prioritization of the things that most need to shift and improve now. Can't improve everything, can't improve most things, can't improve um, too many things. We've got to be ruthless about what it is. And the results map is that. So, what you may see, though, Dan, is that the results map theory can still be used if you want to map out the business model for an organization. And it will be a much bigger, fuller map. And the business model includes all the operational stuff that doesn't necessarily need to improve right now. Might want to keep an eye on it, sure, but we often find that we never need to go to that level of a results map, because really the strategic stuff is where we've got to give our limited time, attention, and resources.
One way to rethink about what Stacey just said is think about how much time you have in your day-to-day work to work on improving things. And if you have one day a week, you've got, say, 20% capacity. If you've got one day a fortnight, you've got 10% capacity. And the more that we talk about this, we realize that we really don't have a lot of capacity for fixing on things to change. Whereas, so therefore, narrowing that down about where we put our effort for change effort and time and effort and resources, that really helps us narrow in on those things. Dan's got another question there, which I love, which is how often do you see results maps being iterated? And I love that question because one of the things that I first discovered with results mapping and working with organizations on their results maps is that typically you refresh strategy every year. Most organizations do, and you come back with a refreshed strategy, mainly because we didn't achieve the things that we set out to achieve in the first year. But when you come back to a results map, I've seen it just tweaked maybe from one year to the next. The thing that changes is the thing that Stacey just highlighted, which is what are the priorities for change? And we focus on that. And they're the things that can change from year to year, but the results map often stays pretty much the same from year to year.
Mine has, but over the last 20 years, my results map has evolved, and I haven't had a formal annual day where I've reviewed my results map. I find that often when I do a quarterly review, I will tweak one thing or another. I'll discover that another result is actually a more powerful driver of the strategic goals that I have. And so I'll tweak that and change it, and the measures will get changed as well. But it's not like you're starting from scratch ever with a results map. The results map is something that just keeps evolving with your strategy or your shifting priorities, like Mark said.
I've got to talk to Sally's question.
Yeah.
So this is the one that always comes up, Sally. Is this approach scalable to local government context? And where you've got 24 strategic objectives delivered across 28 work areas, delivering, 60 plus unique services. And the short answer is yes.
Yeah, the results map is in a lot of local government organisations around Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Sally, I've seen a couple of those local governments go to that level where they've actually got a very large results map, and others where they've focused on their priorities. So whilst they might have 24 strategic objectives, they may not actually be all strategic objectives. Some of them might be best reflected as performance measures, for example, like improving health or something like that.
yeah,
Um, they can be translated into different ways onto a results map.
that's it. But the important thing about local government, because it is one of the most complex organisation types on the planet, um, it it needs a deliberate approach. It works better when you've got the leadership team understanding the value and the benefit of it, but also accepting that it's not something that gets built in one session or overnight. And each service team needs to be involved in building their little slice of it, I guess. So it's just done gradually over time. It's not something that's going to just magically happen because of how, like you say, Sally, how many strategic objectives there are and how many work areas and services there are. But it's absolutely doable and absolutely clarifying and anchoring the process of doing it. Mark?
But well, the whole thing is strategic a weasel word these days, which I challenge it is. There's another one from Dan there. How do you manage the possibility that agreeing on one result draws effort away from other results? Well, at least if we have a results map, we're doing it consciously
Mm,
rather than allowing it to happen within the culture of the organization or whatever team leaders feel is important to them. And it's
yeah.
making those conscious decisions about the results that we choose to focus on, either to maintain level of performance or to improve it. And they're the choices we really have with those results.
Right. We might flick across to some of the questions that were pre-submitted by people that when they signed up. So I've got one. Roberto, actually, you might still be here live, but when you signed up, you asked this question: how frequently should we assess if we're still aligned or drifting from our strategy? It relates a little bit to a question Dan said before, but I think Dan's question was about how often do you change or update the results map. This is more about how frequently should you assess if the alignment's still there or if you're kind of drifting away from it. Mark, I'm going to say quarterly would be a healthy rhythm for most situations. What do you find in practice?
Yeah, I think quarterly is a good, particularly for the results that are in that blue or green level. Um, Team level results at that orange or tan level, maybe you're doing that more frequently to either bi-weekly or monthly context.
Mm, good. Hopefully that helps, Roberto. Bronwyn, hi Bronwyn, asks, how do you address the behavior of bottom up? So that is managers taking existing measures and trying to shoehorn them to fit the new strategy. That retrospective alignment of our existing measures, because they're already reported, we've already got the data, let's try and match them as best we can to a new strategy. Well, I would say it's not good behavior for a start because you're going to end up letting the measures drive your old strategy, not your new one. But yeah, how do you address that behavior, Mark?
How do we address the behavior? It's about recognizing that sometimes we've got measures and data that we become comfortable using,
Yeah.
but it's not good evidence of the results that we're trying to work towards. And what I'd like to do is if we've got these new results, either if they're these tan or orange results or the blue results or even the green ones, if you go to do a measure design and selection pump technique for that, 20 to 30 minutes in a team meeting, put the existing measures into that process and see whether they actually stand up as being good evidence
I
of
was going
that
to say the
result.
same thing. because in the measure design technique, for those of you who aren't pump alumni and don't know what's in it, it has a little step there where you deliberately evaluate the relevance and the feasibility or practicality of measures. And so we come up with new measure ideas there, very deliberately, but we also can include, like Mark said, existing measures to see how they compare and whether we can come up with something that's more meaningful, or whether in fact we're lucky enough to already have some measures that are the best evidence of those new strategic results. So yeah, it's managed very deliberately, Bronwyn, the addressing that behavior of shoehorning old KPIs.
So just one point on the results map as well, that you can still picture that results map in your mind. Um, the results that are determined to be the results that we're trying to change or deliberately put performance improvement effort into, on the results map, we typically bold the result itself so it stands out. The other results might still be there to maintain the level of performance that they're already achieving. And we're still using our performance measures to give us evidence that maintaining that standard of performance is for that particular result, rather than taking our eye off the ball of what the priorities for change are.
Indeed. Uh, Carmina has had submitted a question as well. Would the results map be like a scorecard of target, output, outcome, um, aligned with medium to long-term strategy, or a monitoring assessment tool for calibration of strategy or performance projections, like unmet targets versus targets? I think probably the best way to describe, because a results map does touch on those things, Carmina, but I think a good way to describe the results map is that it is laid out in front of you your roadmap of hypotheses about how to achieve your current strategic direction. What are the changes that are most important to make, the improvements most important to make, that are going to confident that you believe and are confident about are going to shift and move your organization in the correct direction. And attached to that results map, or what that results map then helps you figure out, is what you should be measuring. And the measures will help you figure out what your targets need to be. And so there is more that happens beyond and behind that results map, but the results map is kind of the roadmap to help get um, uh, that calibration of strategy, I guess, kind of practical and tangible. Mark, I don't know if I answered that super correct, clearly, but do you want to add any
No,
clarification?
that sounded okay to me.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Uh, Another question from Winnie. Hi, Winnie. I find results mapping tricky. What are some tips to ease the results mapping process, such as what kind of questions can I ask myself to help identify and establish those linkages or relationships? Tips to ease the results mapping process. So Winnie is part of our Pump alumni, so obviously has been playing with results mapping. I want to suggest two things, Mark, just while you're pondering this question. One is, again, to come back to what I said before, is treat it as iteratively. Treat it iteratively. In Pump, we have a saying, or the 80% rule, where you want to get it 80% good enough and then keep moving forward with it. So, for example, get the results map 80% good enough and then start going to what the measures should be. Because when you go to what the measures will be, that will, and you go back to your results map to attach the measures, like we saw with cacao, that helps you get another layer of clarity. Quite often, you can see that through the measure design process, you can tweak or rethink a result. So, iteration is a healthy thing. It's not necessarily rework. It's moving through layers of deepening clarity, I guess. And the other thing I would suggest to make results mapping a bit easier is to don't take on too much at once. Start small, start with one little team, build just a few of the most important strategic results. Um, and keep the focus narrow so that you can allow some time for conversation. So you're not rushing through to get your 38 results on the map. You're just thinking about two or three at a time and really spending the time to consider their importance, to consider the way you're articulating them, and consider how you're going to measure them, because that strengthens the muscle for making results mapping a lot more fluid after that. Mark. What would you add?
So that is the big question. And sometimes I forgot who asked the question now.
That was
Stacey,
Winnie.
Winnie, of
Winnie.
course. So for me, I like to get a results map up on a screen in front of a group and start to create the words as we go. And if you're talking with the leadership team, I was going to say it's good fun. As a facilitator, it's good fun to challenge the leaders about what outcomes they're really looking for. Outcomes and results are sort of the synonymous terms for me. And you take their fluffy strategic words and you go, what's the outcome you're really trying to achieve here? And you can put those words onto a results map in PowerPoint and just see how the words fit with those guys, those people, and then you just see how it sort of fleshes out from there. Normally, that discussion, which can take even just 15 or 20 minutes, can produce the pink and the green level results at your first sort of cut. And then when you're trying to then figure out what are the other results that fit in on the map, one thing that I like to think about it is that if you think about the results map and that outer layer of the orange or tan level results, they're sort of created by teams. People will often tell you what teams do. We do this thing, we do that, and we do this, and we do this, and we've got to make sure that's done. You go, okay, so when that's done, what's the outcome from that? And that gives you that first level of result that's at that tan or orange level. And then when you've got that, you've pretty much then can figure out what's in between the tan level, which is a direct result of people's activity, and then how that connects into the green through a blue result that's achieved at that department level that we looked at with cacao before.
It's easy to want to dive into all the how tos, but that's what the pump training's for. Like it needs
It
a
is.
the process of building a results map needs a clearly understood and demonstrated process. It's really hard to kind of get it all across in a webcast like this. But yeah, hopefully that's giving you some clues that it really is practical when you've got the steps. Mark, there is a question from Nathan that I think we might have missed before. How do you tackle the lack of data for measures, which is sometimes years apart, especially in local government? I'm going to suggest the power of proxy measures where you can collect data more frequently, where a proxy measure is a measure that's very directly correlated with your result. Your direct measure of your result might be depending on data that's years apart because your result might be a very long-term result. But a proxy measure could be something that's sort of, when you know that when this proxy measure increases, your real measure is going to increase as well. And the other is often you find those very long term, years apart type measures are more at the higher level or the outcomes or the results that are in the center of the results map. So in that case, you'd be looking at monitoring more deliberately the orange and the blue level results because typically the data for those is more frequent. And finally, I would add, does it have to be that infrequent? You might say, oh, we do this massive community survey and it's huge and it takes ages. And so we can only afford to do it every 2 years. Well, do you really need to wait 2 years? Are you really asking only strategic questions? Can you pull out some of the questions that really need more frequent data and put them into more of a pulse survey based on a smaller sample of your community so that you can get a pulse, a measure of the pulse on those results more frequently? So yeah, sometimes it's the problem's actually in the data collection decisions, not necessarily in the nature of the result. Mark, you want to add anything to that? I know I've kind of dove in
Not to the
there.
discussion on the measurement bit, but I will just say that what I was just talking about, the results mapping before and working with teams and producing their results, um, to another point that Dan's made, it will always surface differences of opinion
Yeah, it
from the
will.
people in the group. But what it does then, it actually brings those people together on a set of results.
Mm.
So they've all got different opinions, but when you work through what is the actual outcome or result that we're working towards, and you come up with one, two, or three of what those things are, it brings everyone together very quickly and it gets that consistent interpretation of what it is. And then once you've done the pump training, if you've you use the pump measure design technique, you do that same thing with that same group, and then they will all come to the same conclusion about what the best evidence is as well. And it's that process that allows them to get to that consensus as a group, which is powerful.
At least as important as surfacing differences of opinion, it surfaces differences of assumption. And that's
Yeah.
probably the more powerful thing, is the assumptions that we've made about what something means. And often that's kind of, people respond to the surfacing of those assumptions with the, oh, right, now I see, rather than, oh no, you're wrong, my opinion's better. It doesn't create argument, it creates clarity and more alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Oh, Paul, I just noticed that you'd mentioned looking forward to learning more about this in when you registered. You said this. One of your colleagues recommended us to your clients as part of your board advisory work. So I can see you're still here, Paul. I just wanted to give you a little shout out. And Mark, I think the only other question that I can see that isn't answered, I'm actually going to suggest gets answered with an article that I've already written about this. Um, I did mention today that Pump integrates with other strategy frameworks. How does that work is the question. I'm going to send an article about that, how Pump integrates with other strategy management frameworks, rather than answer it here. But I think, Mark, we might be through all of the questions.
Think so.
Yeah, great. Oh, lots of questions, great questions too. It's been and for those of you who have, so many of you decided to hang on right, right through to the end with us. So hopefully you found those questions interesting, and our answers a little bit helpful at least as well. So I think we wrap this up now, Mark. Um, Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. In particular, thank you so much for the interaction, for playing with us in the activities, and for sharing your thoughts and your questions along the way. Mark, always thank you for adding in so many of your insights from the very long experience you've had, very deep experience you've had with Pump.
It's been great fun, and I've enjoyed the interaction and everyone's questions and comments, and watching everyone get into the whiteboard and put stuff in there. It's been really good. Enjoyed it
Some of
very
the
much. Thanks, everyone.
great comments and thanks coming through in the chat. I really appreciate you all for that. Let us know if we can help you. Just email team@pump.academy, and we'll be very keen to find out what all the different ways we can support you. Until next time, everyone. Mark, I'm speaking on behalf of Mark, but I know he'll agree with me. We really
Thanks,
want you to
everyone.
feel more inspired to give Pump a try. Bye, everybody.